is time.
Oh, dang it. I was hoping I'd catch you guys in the middle like Jay always does.
Like normal. No, I saw the clock turn to 8 and I'm like, woo.
Didn't time it right. All right. Well, maybe I'll get you guys next time. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Spilling Ink. We are the talk show that takes you behind the book to meet the authors and professionals in the publishing industry. And boy, do we have a good show for you tonight. We got Double O Banana himself, JD Estrada. And another returning visitor, William Hoole.
Oh.
Yay.
All right, but before we get into our stuff, because you know we're going to squirrel off into the crazy topics, we need to pay homage to our sponsor. So let us listen to Joe with Go Indie Now.
Hello, everybody. I am Joe Compton, and welcome to our channel, Go Indie Now. This is the place that celebrates indie artists and indie art, and we do so by producing several shows that either air on daily, weekly, monthly, or seasonal scheduling. And within those shows, we aim to educate and entertain you. If you're an indie artist who's trying to figure out how to do this, this is the place you need to be. If you're an indie artist who's looking to promote and doesn't have any avenues and is tired of the grind, this is the place to be. Because remember, it's always time to go indie now.
So inspirational. I love hearing that. It's always time to go indie now.
Absolutely.
Always.
And I'm pimping out for Joe.
Yes. Yes. I love it. That's the old logo too. I really like that logo.
It's old school. The other one, I try not to use the same shirt twice so that people go like, oh, he bathes.
I'm just rocking the office. So if any of you says something wrong, I'm just going to go false.
Since we're showing off the shows, I'm going to be pimping out Jay's other show, Unafraid.
Oh, I have nothing, so I'm not going to show my chest.
That's okay. We'll get you a shirt.
Yeah.
And Regine says, I smashed the like button. Yes, smash that like button.
So, JD, what are you working on these days?
Basically, I did a recap of what I was working on, and I hadn't finished. And I found that I had 26 manuscripts or unfinished projects, and I was like, "Yeah, let's remedy that." So basically, I'm working on book 3 of The Human Cycle, which is Beyond Human, because I need to get that done. And out of all the projects, I was like, "Okay, what do I think that I really want to focus on?" Because this also helps me with motivation and writer's block and whatnot, and just to keep me floating. So there's a poetry collection, a positive poetry collection called Ballads of Hope and Joy. Because I think that in these times, if we can get a shot of positive, I think we need that. So basically, those are the 2 main things I'm working on. I did March of the Writers, which kept me plenty busy in March. I'm working on the blog. I'm working on songs. Basically, just going with the flow to whatever tickles my fancy.
You've been killing it with the blog lately.
And more to come. I'm happy that you've enjoyed it. I've also been more active on my author LinkedIn because I never gave it any love, and I was like, let's give it some love. Why not? And people have connected there and reading on Goodreads as well. So for some reason, channels that normally didn't work for me are kind of working. So that's cool.
Okay. I never even think about using LinkedIn. That one is not that
it's weird.
Not that it's a bad channel. It's just it never felt like it was a channel that would work as a writer to reach the audience. But I guess you're right. It does have a place.
I think people...
I'm out there for my professional job, but I'm out there as J.E. Taylor. so it's kind of a catch-22 there. People who know me, under my married name, which he has.
Mom.
Don't know me necessarily as Janie Taylor. So, but I have it out there and they're learning more. And how do you leverage LinkedIn?
I can't say that I'm doing anything responsible or organized. I'm just dumping a bunch of links, trying to interact with people. I think it all boils down to interacting with people and then eventually posting something that for X or Y reason catches someone's attention. I can't say there's a science to it in terms of what I do. There's stuff that I wrote 5 years ago, didn't connect. Suddenly I reshared it and someone was like, "That's a great article, man. That's just what I needed to read." And I'm like, I'm so ahead of the times that, I wrote this 5 years ago versus today. And that happens with a lot of stuff. And you can have it bother you. You can try to play the algorithm and play all those games. But for me, it is so draining that I just move on to the next thing. And just, if I'm enjoying myself, if I'm having a good time, and again, in different people are connecting in different places that I go like, okay, that's new. So let's rock with it.
Let's run with it. Yeah.
We got to stop for a second and touch on the whole algorithm thing, because that, I think the chasing the algorithm is what is killing a lot of the motivation for creatives.
Mm-hmm.
On YouTube, if I upload a video, a lot of times I'll lose like 1 or 2 subscribers just because I uploaded something. And I'm like, okay, what type of incentive are you giving me to give you more stuff to put on your website so that more people can spend more hours on your website? I know it's free and it's super convenient and I'm super thankful.
Oh yeah, I think.
By the way, YouTube doesn't regulate for shit. And the crazy people, you just got to mute and block them immediately. Do not hesitate. Do not try to reason with people. Just, bam.
We were talking about that pre-show.
Yes. That is not William's collection. That is Victoria's collection, my daughter's.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So how much is it to get a membership?
I'll have to ask her,
$30?
but she's not a cheap person. Speaking of like algorithms, though, I think you brought a great point with YouTube. That's something that my generation kind of lifted that up, which is weird to say because now a lot of people do it as their full-time job. But I think the issue with that definitely is I myself want to get into that, and more so for writing and everything, for a creative outlet. It's a good outlet to record and talk and speak about this stuff, and it's very fun in the end too because you get opinions back and forth. However, just like the way YouTube is built and the way a lot of those sites similar to YouTube is built, if it doesn't fit the algorithm of, oh, it needs to have this much likes, oh, it needs to be this if you want it to be at the top, it's frustrating and it kind of kills a lot.
Nah, you have Katie here, you have Joe, and you have Margaret Pennard in the chat, and you can ask all 3 of them in terms of trying to decipher what works best in terms of likes, going live, hashtags, and a
Short
bunch
videos,
of stuff.
long videos.
Yeah. And they switch it up so that anyone that's trying to game the system doesn't have that leg up. Again, I don't know.
It's chasing a moving target is what we're doing. And it becomes exhausting after a while because you're not doing it just on one platform. The indie author has to be where all of the readers are, and the readers are all spread across YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's a full-time job trying to chase the algorithms for each one of these sites so that the content you post is at least seen.
Yeah, definitely.
Now it's always shifting, and again, a long time ago, I decided to just focus on enjoying myself and having fun and doing different things. What works on one platform does not work on another, or works differently. What I do on Facebook, all the book stuff get like 1 like, 2 likes. Maybe a good one gets like 4 likes.
Right.
But if I drop a snack down in terms of asking people if what's their favorite type of coffee, they go batshit, and it's a fascinating thing to see play out. And I could get all uppity and go like, man, why don't people care about my books? Or I can enjoy that people that are completely roasted and just exhausted and bummed out are having fun on a thread that I decided to put. So, there's a choice. And if you see enough people on BookTube, you're going to see a lot of people that are just trying to make things work. I finally broke the 600 subscriber count, and I've been on YouTube for like 7 years.
Woohoo! Achievement unlocked.
And I get like a handful of readers out of each platform, and they connect on a really meaningful way, and it's very special. So and that's part of what drives me and what makes me happy. Would I like more likes and subscribes and sales and stuff like that? Sure, but all of that stuff, if that's your end goal, you're gonna burn out and you're gonna get frustrated very quickly, especially for people that are starting out.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to start out for a few different things. I mean, I got lucky. I have my mom here who started writing and kind of taught me the ins and outs and the outlets and everything. But the writers just beginning, what my mom couldn't teach me is how to write. Like, yeah, she does a great job herself, but you can't teach someone how to write because then they'll try to copy your style. Everyone has their own kind of unique writing way, but the first thing you got to learn in this industry is one, outlets. Where can I kind of, as you said, even if it's going to get only one view or 2 views or anything like that, where can I outlet or show what I've created? Number 2 is once you find where the outlets are, you got to work on the novel, which is by far going to be one of the toughest challenges, especially if you're just beginning. Because the reason is, and I had this myself, when you're just beginning, you don't have, either you have the energy and you overshoot it by a long shot, and then you send it to the editor and they send it back to you and you see a trillion different edits and you're like, oh crap, I can't do this. Or you undershoot and you're like 50, 60 pages in and you're like, I don't know where to go from here. I just wrapped it up in 60 pages, which you can still do as a short novel or something of that sort. But when you're starting out,
are kind of popular. A short novel is a valid work. So if that's what you have and it's solid, fucking run with it.
And nowadays, I don't even want to, like, short novels are big. Not saying anything towards the younger generation, but their attention isn't amazing. If you're starting off, if you want to do a short novel, that's perfectly fine. Start off there. Learn to build your way up. If you can only do 40 pages, write your best damn work in 40 pages, and then try to do another 10 or 20 or 30, so on and so forth. No, but if you stop at 60,
3? What if you can do 3? And why do I mention 3? Because 40 pages is respectable, but 120 pages means that you can put a spine on the damn artwork.
Exactly.
And that, you would think that something that trivial wouldn't make a difference. Oh yeah, it does.
It does. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
It does.
And as for like staying motivated, everyone has like a different way of staying motivated. And my tips are always, if you're at a point where you are kind of stuck, it doesn't hurt to like just wander the internet. Like, the internet is weird. It's really weird. It's like you could be looking at like new shorts and then end up watching a video of a monkey eating banana, and you won't know how you got there. But that is the funnest thing, because by the time you're there, you end out and you're like, wow, that was hilarious. Should do something with that. Or you might find something that's interesting, but there's no like specific way to kind of push through a wall unless you yourself are willing to kind of push through it. If you get to a point where you're not willing to push through it, reach out. There are places for you to reach out. Go indie now. You can go to Reddit if you want to. Reddit is, they're brutal, but they're
down
funny.
The rabbit hole.
But you'll find something in there that pushes you. I myself love games. I love Reddit. Reddit is hilarious. So I'll go to Reddit and I'll just read like an argument between clearly a 3-year-old who can't form sentences and like a 50-year-old who is speaking in this English native tongue that this 3-year-old has no idea what they're saying. And it's just hilarious. And I come out of that and I'm like, well, now I got my creative juices flowing. Let's jump back into the work.
Yeah.
But until then, like you gotta put in that effort to get that motivation in there. And coming from, I started off very young. I started off at 12.
12?
Yeah, 12-ish. And I started because I went to mom because I was weird and I had weird dreams, and this weird dream seemed really cool, but it was still pretty damn weird. Like I had a dream of the son of death. Who the like I'm a 12-year-old. What? Imagine going to your school and going, yeah, I dreamt about the son of death, and with my mom I wrote a book about it. What you gonna do? Like that's most people nowadays are like, you need to see a psychologist.
Like,
Joke's on you. They wouldn't.
You're talking to creatives here, though, so we're all like, yeah. That's normal. That's cool.
Exactly.
No,
but it's like the weirdest stuff.
Normal. Maybe I
don't see a problem with that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No.
He went for a very long walk. He told me his idea. I poked holes in it and asked him questions, and he had answers. And then he goes, "You think you want to write that with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
That's cool.
Yeah.
But it's definitely like starting off young is probably more difficult because as a younger kid, like you can write something, but you take things a lot harder than most people.
And I was not soft.
Doesn't surprise me.
But if you can get past the hardness and see like where they're coming from, you're good. But in the motivational aspect, I had school going on. After that school, I went on to college. I'm now in a full-time job, still finishing college. How do I have time to write? Well, I make time, whether it's staying up late at night, whether it's, if I get 30-minute break during work, just throwing on Google Docs and doing work then. I find that short amount of time that I'm able to write, I write. It's probably not going to be my best writing because I'm doing it crammed, but eventually I'm going to go back and edit it. That's why the first draft gets like torn to pieces. You send the first draft to the editor. No editors can be like, this is perfect. If they do say that, well, either you're a damn genius and I want to meet you, or they're trying to make you feel good. But I've not met a single editor, sorry, Mom, that tries to make you feel good when you send them their first draft. It's just a brutal battle of I want the best for you. So let's tear this piece up.
Tough love.
Yeah, but getting butthurt is not age restrictive. I know people that are my age and even older that can't accept criticism on anything that they do, much less their writing. Yeah. And there are some people that it's all about mindset. And it's, when you're an indie author and you start putting work out there, when you see the reviews, they're going to be good ones, not so good ones and whatnot. And it's taking everything and reading it and internalizing it and with beta readers as well. It's like knowing what to go like, okay, they have a really good point there. And another one saying, well, maybe this wasn't your cup of tea. Thank you, thank you for participating. Thank you for your time or whatnot. But some people are just never, ever, they're perfect. Don't you know that they're perfect? They're perfect.
JD, are you telling me my regular human character in the regular world can't jump 50 feet? Like, what? That doesn't make any sense.
Look at the Olympics.
My publishing partner, before we were publishing partners, I edited his book when we were at Fido Publishing, and he called me the bitch with the red pen. He still to this day calls me that. However, he said at first, he'd get fiery, angry at me. And then he'd walk away and then he'd think about it and he's like, oh my God, she's right. and he fixed it. And obviously he came back to me and said, hey, let's start a publishing company together. So he had I rubbed off on him in some way, but
that's a good thing. Not all criticism is bad. Criticism helps you grow.
Yeah.
And Mike brings up a good point here. He says, I can take criticism pretty well, but the critic has to make sense. And in your writing journey, you learn what criticism to work with and what criticism to ignore. Not all criticism is valid. And as you get older and you understand more about the process, you can differentiate between what is worth listening to, what is just opinion, and what you can leave aside.
Also, it's striking a relationship with whoever's your editor and people. Getting criticism. You have to get past it, and your initial reaction. You might have a knee-jerk reaction. It's like you have to tell people, I might have this initial reaction. It's nothing personal. I'm just processing it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will take it on board if it's not something that applies, but having that open communication with someone and having that clear, because then some people see that you're a bit standoffish or whatnot, and they think that it's, I can't work with this person. So establishing boundaries is also a great thing. And establishing a relationship and how it's gonna go about is also very important. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't talk about, because it's like, I'm going to say something and you have to take it. It's like, when you go to a doctor, it's supposed to be a team effort. It's not like, you must do this and this and that. And I've tried certain medications, and my initial reaction was not positive. And I told the doctor that, I was getting worse, so I stopped taking the medication. What do you recommend that I should do? Really, what were the symptoms and whatnot? You can apply that to your writing as well.
Mm-hmm.
And again, striking that balance and getting to know each other and getting to know yourself in the process as well. There's a lot of stuff that you have to break down when you're a writer, and you don't necessarily break it down. You might disassemble it and lean it towards, and it might come back up. So it's not, I did this once, so I'm impervious to criticism and to having an asshole moment. No, we're human. Maybe we need more water, but the asshole can come out.
Oh, shoot. And even if you're a seasoned writer, the asshole comes out when you get criticism, and you have to take that minute and you're like, you know what? They were right. All right, I'm going to eat crow. Sorry. Thank you for the criticism. May I have another?
What is weird for me is I take criticism, I take it surprisingly well, i.e. my mother. She kind of jammed me into the position where you got to take criticism to learn. So whenever I took criticism as a kid, I created a conversation with it. I was like, okay, well, what if I did this, this, and this instead? So I try to keep it. I'm like, okay, I have this image. I really want to do this image. If you're headstrong, this is how I want to write it. This is the image I want. Create a conversation. Speak with the editor about how you can create that image. The whole reason they're there is to help you edit. If you want to keep it that image, but work with your editor on the way to write it. And if you can't do that, that's where you got to learn, okay, I got to take back a second, and you got to figure out, am I going to do it this way or am I not? And a lot of the times, if the editor is headstrong, and this isn't with all editors, but most times if the editor is headstrong, this isn't going to work. Look at it from their side, reread it a few times, try to work it in the image that they're looking at, and then make a combination of the two. Because a lot of time, if you combine your thought process with the editors, it's gonna come out spectacularly. But what's weird for me is in college, even towards the end of high school, when I handed in writing pieces, my English teachers have had nothing to say, because I was far beyond what they expected, because my whole life practically I've been writing and I've been working on it. And it's because the family I grew up in, the amount of effort I put into my writing and the criticism that I took from it, and a lot of the time, I read something now, and I did this the other night. I was laying in bed writing, and I wrote a paragraph, and before I go to sleep, I'll reread it. I reread that paragraph. I'm like, come on, Billy, that's so stupid. And I just deleted the whole paragraph and then rewrote it. And I was like, that's better. And I went forward. But you get to a point in writing, you're never going to, even when I just say, oh, that's stupid, I might send it to my mom and her send it back and go, actually, I liked it the other way around. But it's a matter of, are you willing to look at your own mistakes because you gotta accept that you make mistakes before you can send your piece to an editor. Because if you can't do that and you overstep in your anger, it's going to backlash at you. But you got to learn that everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. Your final draft might not be, like, the way I look at it. Every book you make, when you move on to your next book, your writing's, it should be better. Because in that last book, you got criticism. And moving forward, you can only do better if you keep yourself, I've gotten to the point where I read now and I'm like, wow, this is 10 times better than what I wrote the other day. And it's because I'm learning as I'm going.
Learning the entire writing career. It never stops, this learning and getting better and trying to find new ways to say, cliche things and all of that is, it's a journey.
Yep. Every writer and editor is going to have every writer and editor is going to have their favorite book, like their favorite book, but it's not necessarily going to be their best book. It'll be their favorite, but it's not necessarily their best. I mean, sometimes it is. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes you read it and you're like, this is brilliant, because the idea, the world building, everything is absolutely amazing. It brings you in, and then you go forward and maybe the rest don't hit. But I mean, at least from my perspective, I'll have my favorite book, but I'll like, in the back of my head, I'm like, I know I can, if I were to rewrite that book now, it would be better than what it was before. Because as you go, you learn and you build on it. And I've looked at my old short stories and I'm like, oh, I could have made this a little bit better. This scene is a little bit wonky. You get a certain description of it, but there's not much there. And it's important to, when you start young, you have teachers, you have people that are there to teach you to learn. Ask questions. Not everyone has an author as a parent, so use your outlets right. If you're in school and you got an English teacher, ask them. Anything, ask them.
Also, look for your voice, and it doesn't have to be in creative writing in terms of a short story or a poem or a novel. I think one of my highlights in my writing career was in college. I got an A on a test in my Spanish class, and I had a note that said, "Thank you for writing this, because I've had a long week. It's been rough. All the tests, or at least half the tests, were pretty awful. And to be able to laugh at an answer in a test is something very unique and something that I didn't know that I need. So thank you." And I was like, and I still, and that was 21 years ago, and I still get giddy over that story, because your writing in any place can have an impact. And there's blog pieces that I've written that resonate with people. There's something that I wrote 15 years ago that someone, some of the best feedback and motivation that I've gotten is from people that write privately. It's like, thanks to this piece, I felt okay to be myself. And I was like, damn, that, this was just something that I wrote because I was processing something in my brain.
Yeah.
And it connected with someone. And to know that you did that on a blog that, a handful of people check out, that's pretty special. And that's something that when you're having a bad day, when you think that something's not working, it's not to latch onto that feeling, but it's to remember that you can hit those notes and those high points.
There was a meme that was floating around for a while that it was a request for reviews, but the way it was worded was perfect. And it basically said, your review may be the reason that an author decides not to take up scorpion petting.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm like, you know what? That is true, because there are days where, you're feeling really low, the imposter syndrome is hitting, and you see somebody posted a good review and you're like, oh, I'm not horrible. Okay, I can do this.
Yep.
We got a question in the audience here. What is your favorite book? And I think we'll just go around with that one. Let everybody answer that.
Yeah, that I've read or that I've written.
That you've written.
That you've
Your
written.
favorite of your work.
That's which of your children do you want to say is your favorite in public?
Yep.
I think my favorite is, there's a tie between two, and it's not only human, and it's not Shadow of a Human, which are the Human Cycle, and it's what I'm most known for. I would say Given to Fly, because it was Mom's favorite, and she said it was really special. And 2020, because it's a bilingual collection with essays, short stories, and poetry in English and Spanish, and a bilingual poem in the middle. That is me pushing my range as much as I can, or as much as I could at that point, and it's something that I'm going to revisit. And when people finally read it, and they go like, "Wow, that was really great," and I'm like, "Tell people about it." Because it's a book that I'm really proud of, and I think it shows what I can do. It's not like, oh, this is a perfect book by any means, but it's I think I hit a lot of notes that I really wanted to hit. And it's curious that you can have like a really cheeky poem about a guy who falls in love with a stock photography model, and also have an essay talking about pejorative language and the issues that are happening right now. To have that in one book, I think it's pretty cool for me.
I think for me, it was actually a piece I wrote for my creative writing course in college, which is the reason I got majorly back into writing and working on this novel. And the title of it was A Lightbringer's Journey. And it is 25 pages, I believe. This was different than this is one of my longer short stories by far. It definitely, we had a page limit I didn't stick to at all. But I wrote it because I've been watching a lot of just TV shows and movies, and I had an idea in my head about what I wanted to do. And I wanted to do something with a small town village of outcasts and people who are not allowed to live in, I guess you could say, the quote unquote human world. So I did with a half elf, half demon, and his journey to getting accepted into this world so that he can start a journey. And there are actually, I think, 4 different short stories building on that if I combined into one would make one epic 100-page book. But I basically wrote that. It took me, I want to say, about a week and a half, 2 weeks of just polishing it and building on it. And I sent it in to my professor, and I got 110 on it. She gave me way more than what I was expecting, and wrote back, this was one of the best pieces she has ever read, period. And we ended up sharing it with the class, and she didn't give the name out of the writer, and the class loved it to an astonishing amount. And then they told everyone who wrote it, which was me. And at that point, I couldn't. She was like, "You're right, like a professional author." And I'm like, "Well, actually," and we went from there. But it was one of those moments where I wrote that, and it was just such an epic journey that I immediately started getting back into writing that night. And again, I have 4 other pieces or short stories building off that one, that if I were to combine them, I would have to find a way, of course, to bring the stories together. It kind of picks off where one leaves, but almost in a different year or so. So I might have to just tweak that a little bit. But it was by far the most amazing thing. And it was such a journey because it pushed me out of my comfort zone. I wasn't used to fight scenes until that. I wasn't used to adult scenes or sex scenes until that one. Which was
that's why the class liked
why
it.
we shared it with the class. but it pushed me out of my comfort zone and like showed me a whole different side of writing. And then just the response I got from it made me extremely happy and like wanted to get back into seriously writing, because for the longest time I was just in a dry spot, whereas I enjoyed writing, but I just couldn't for the life of me continue, a long novel. And now, I've gotten drafts. I worked on a creative story, which is what this novel is based on, and I basically made that creative story 300-400 pages of just like an outline of what I want to do. And it's not like paragraphs. It's quite literally 400 pages, like single sentences, like, oh, this is here, this is there, this is there. And no, it was a great moment, because it wasn't something that was published. It wasn't something sent out to the public or anything. It was just something done for a class that brightened not only my professor's day, but made all the students like have their eyes just burst open and go, who the heck in our class wrote this?
What about you, Katie?
I was actually going to pause and address the elephant in the room real quick. And that is when you write adult scenes and your mom is your editor, that's just got to be really, really interesting to share.
I don't send those scenes to her.
She just sees the end.
I don't fiance read those scenes. I don't let anyone read those scenes yet. Because when I'm writing them, I have to look across the room and be like, she's not watching me write this, right? Okay. All right, I think I'm good now. And then it hits me. I have to send this to get edited at some point. All right, let's Control Alt Delete. Let's make this a kid-friendly novel.
No.
You know that I let my father read my first book.
No, my father has read all of my work to include the pen name. So yes, I understand how you feel.
I have read all her books. I think it's about time I get some payback, like some sweet, juicy payback.
You read my books?
I've read some of your books. Yeah, because I have my Kindle up. And I put a lot of your books on there. Some of the things I read, I'm like, I don't need to read this, but it's part of the book, so I'm going to keep reading.
And we have an editor
This is the most
volunteer.
special moment for Jane right now, finding out that William reads it.
That's okay.
And Jonesy is already volunteering as editor, so there you go.
So, Katie, what about you? What's your favorite one?
Oh, it's a toss-up. I really enjoyed when I was writing the Chronicles of the Uprising. I was in a dark place as it was, and I got to channel a lot of my aggression into that book. And I think
those.
It was fun to write. It was so much fun to write because it was cathartic. All the anger, all the negative energy, I could just throw it right into it. And I hope it shows in the pages.
Yeah, I loved that series. That was one of my favorite ones of yours.
Yes, no scorpion petting for me today. But then again, I do, kind of like what Margaret said, whatever you're currently working on tends to be your favorite. And I do love the Agents of Asset series. I love that world. And I love the fact that most superhero type stories, they're overpowered and they can kind of do anything. But my twist on it was their power is in the fact that they can't really do anything and they have to be smart. And that I have fun writing around that issue of there's all this magic and all this craziness around them, but they can't use it. They have to act on a human level, even though they're not human. And so that's become a lot of fun for me. So that one is my current favorite, but the Chronicles is definitely got a space in my heart.
Yeah, I saw her comment. I'm like, yeah, kind of that. But if I have to step back and go, which one was my favorite to write? Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, no. I'd have to say Hunting Season, because that was the first time I merged my series together, and I had a lot of fun writing that book. So that was my Steve Williams FBI series with the game series characters merged. So it was wonderful. And then the rest of the series that spun off from those. So, but you're right. I'm enjoying Dragon Tempest, which is the one I'm writing right now. So.
I think like merging stories is like my favorite thing to do, especially with like I write a lot of fantasy. So if I merge stories, oh crap, things are gonna get really heated really quickly. And I don't know why. It's just so fascinating because you also got to think about when you merge stories, like and I can do that freely. A lot of I love writing fantasy or sci-fi, just magic, everything of that sort. So I could do that freely. But it comes down to a lot of my characters are different races. So if I were to merge books, there'd be a bloodbath, to say the very least. Which I still love writing those scenes because those can be like the most like just fun, entertaining scenes that you can write, at least in my opinion. No one hates action. I love action. I love it so much, and I think that's another.
Well, I've taken liberties on the characters we created.
Yeah,
the characters we created were in the books that Katie and I wrote.
I had an argument with you about that character because we had different ideas of his current level of strength, which I still think I'm in the right. I think I am in the right.
Awkward pause.
Yes, I'm not going to argue anymore.
How about Burnout? We haven't talked about Burnout, and Burnout is very common. And in the last year, people think that Burnout is one thing, and Burnout can happen for a lot of reasons: emotional, physical, time, worry. You name it. It can run the gamut, and I think people have been pushed into areas that they never thought they would be pushed this year. And, I think a lot of people are worried on how they're going to keep doing what they enjoy doing. And at least for me last year, the writing that I got done was very different from all the projects. I had all the projects open, but nothing was flowing. And then someone was like, do you want to be in an anthology? And I'm like, sure. And then do you want to be in another one? And I'm like, sure. And from not writing, I went to writing 2,500 and 3,000 word short stories in a day. Like one sit down. It's like, okay, I'll transcribe. And when I transcribe it, I go like, okay, let me let this go because I don't find much that I'm going to edit. And then I look back and I have to send it to an editor. And I'm like, comma, save, send. That was cool. But there has been burnout for other reasons, getting overworked and stuff like that. So, and all of us have different types of burnout.
Yeah, COVID certainly did. In the beginning, I don't know what it was. Back this time last year, I couldn't write. Yes, maybe it was we were getting ready to move and we had this and that and everything going on and stuff, but my brain just couldn't function to put things down. So that it took until May or June for me to pick up and do something because I had an editor's deadline.
Nothing motivates like a deadline.
Yep. I put those deadlines on myself because if I don't do it, I'll putter around and, not get it done.
Burnout's definitely a tough thing. I had gone like freshman, sophomore year without writing, which was weird for me because I began writing at the age of 12, 11. I just enjoyed writing. I've enjoyed writing my whole life. I'm at a standard that not a lot of 21-year-olds are at in terms of being published and writing in a professional way, of getting absolutely scrutinized every time I write. But for a year or two, I had a spot where I couldn't pick up. I just couldn't write to save my life. I would try everything and I just couldn't. It was not so a matter of I didn't have the thoughts. I had the ideas. You can have the ideas. But when you go to look at the page, you can just be out of it. And I think COVID really brought that to light. I had this similar issue with mom, and I think for me, I was starting work. I was back from college, and I just didn't have the energy, the excitement of putting words on a page and then having that being read. And I think excitement is something that drives a lot of writers. Like when you're writing, you want to feel excited. You want to feel like you want to write more. Like readers, when they're reading, they want to know what's next. When writers are writing, they want to, like, if they're going to kill a character, they want to do that scene as best as they can. They want to really, really put you into that position when you try to get into a fight. It's all about that. But I think a lot of my issue is recently I put down the excitement factor, and I just thought to myself, you know what? I want to write. Let's take a breather. Let's just write. And eventually, as I began writing, whether it was exciting or not, it started to build back up in me like, oh, I'm enjoying this. And do it with music. Do it with something in the background that makes you happy. Doesn't necessarily need to make you excited. If you get happy listening to slow jazz music and you need to write a murder scene, fine. Listen to jazz music while you kill somebody. Perfectly normal in the writer's world.
Do that.
Yep.
Soft piano music. Bang. Awesome. Beautiful. Great.
What's that Yanni music and people killing someone to Yanni? That's
the singing bowls going on in the background.
Exactly. But after a while, like you'll start to get that excitement again. You'll be like, oh my God, I enjoy this. This is a lot of fun. And it builds back up. But like if you don't do anything to build that excitement back up, you're kind of at a stalemate where it's like I'm putting words on a page or I'm not putting words on a page and I'm just kind of sitting there. I get writer's block a lot when I'm just writing a book. I hit a point where I don't know what to do. So I take a second, play games, and then I come back. Whether I'm excited or not.
I'm talking to Rebekah's comment, but
I chuckled at the Yanni comment too.
Yes.
Williams being like profound and sharing something really personal. I see the Yanni comment and you hear the
yep.
But to your point and writer's block and whatnot, some people find their formula and they want to depend on their formula. And that's something that I always preach against. It's good to find something that works for you, but it's bad to just depend on that one trick or that one method to get, stuff out of you. Sometimes you got to mix it up, and sometimes mixing things up and doing things differently can just, make the story better. Because if you're forcing yourself to write it, think about it. Unless you're like Frank Miller, who I've heard that he doesn't care too much about what he writes, but he's an excellent writer. Unless you're Frank Miller, or someone in that category, people are going to have to force themselves to finish your book, and that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
The point with being burned out, we all approach it differently. We all get burned out differently, but I think it's that complete lack of desire to do the thing that you once loved because there's no more joy in it, because it's either too much of a burden. You either can't seem to find the time, whatever the reason is. And then there's that guilt associated with it, because not only are you not doing the thing, but now you feel bad that you're not doing the thing. And that just continues to weigh down on you. And it makes it even harder.
Because you're not doing the thing. Because, yes, it's all compounding.
Yeah. And it's really hard to pull yourself out of that hole, even with, tricks, the music thing. It's a beautiful trick. They say get out and go for a walk. Okay. You go for a walk. Now I'm too tired to do it. It's like you've got to find the way to recreate the joy, I think. And then things can start falling back in. Or at least for me, that's how it feels. Like there's just no joy. And I have to find one little thing that brings the joy back. Otherwise, I can't bring myself to do it.
Yeah.
The thing is that often for me, writing is what helps me keep balance.
Yeah.
I am living through the suck and the grind, and oh my God, this day sucked. So let me put words on paper because that makes me happy. What happens when you can't get past this to get to this, to the good stuff? And there are so many things that you can do, and people limit themselves in so many ways. There are a lot of habits that I've adopted. Most of them are good, and the bad ones I've tried to let go. From meditation every night to stretching every night to doing stuff like that and being mindful of your health, that can also reflect on your writing. I know some people who are like method writers. It's like, I have to write someone being sick. So basically I'm going to eat something until I feel like crap. And then I'm going to write what I'm feeling. And it's like,
No.
I have a great memory and I've already felt like crap quite a few times. I do not need to impose anything on myself. But when, like Katie's saying, when you don't do the thing and then you focus on not doing the thing, and oh my God, beating yourself up is not going to help you do the thing. Punching yourself in the nutsack, unless you're Steve-O, which we saw the Hot Ones episode today, and it was just brilliant. It's not going to motivate you. And yeah, people saw Da Vinci Code and the Salice and stuff like that. That could be a motivation for some people, but it's not going to be the majority. How you can let go of that and focus on other stuff. William sometimes gets blocked and he lets go of the story because he's like, this is not working. So let's do something else. Let my brain relax. And that's something that a lot of people forget. And it's very powerful. How you relax, it could be reading, it could be playing a video game, it could be playing guitar, it could be going for a drive, it could be walking, it could be going into a room and throwing a ball like Sheldon. Whatever the hell you need to allow yourself to do the thing, that's what you have to do. And it's going to be different. The 5 things that you have to do, screw that. What works for you? Find what works for you.
No more pressure.
And people put
JD,
a lot of pressure.
I think you made a great point too, though. You had mentioned earlier, don't have a formula, and I 100% agree. Like right now, my thing is games. They help me escape. Usually, though, before it was music, that got tiring. Before it was a walk, that got tiring.
See, now you like,
yeah, yes. I did.
But on fire.
But you had mentioned not have a formula, and I think that goes both ways. If you're writing a book based off of a formula that you created, eventually you're going to hit a spot where that formula just doesn't feel right to you. I see it all the time, at least in my friends. I have my own outlines that I like to follow. Again, I say I like to follow, but I don't follow them completely. If you try to do everything in a formula or like a systematic way, eventually you're going to hit the point where you're like, this is hell. This is hell in itself that I am working in. This is a fiery hell where I want to burn all my pages and go on, because you're now thinking, okay, I'm on step 1, finish step 1. Now I'm on step 2, finish step 2, step 3,
There's
4,
no
5, 6.
There's no passion in that, at least for me.
No. But it's also, you don't want to have a formula outside of your writing, because once you're done with writing, if you go, or once you hit that point where you feel burnt out or blocked, if you go, all right, I'm going to do this, works every time, and then it doesn't work, you're going to panic. And then that panic is going to make things worse.
It's going to compound the block.
Book. Yeah, and then you're going to get back into the book and you're going to be like, I can't do this. And then it's going to go to Katie's point where you're like, oh, I feel bad, I can't do this. Everyone's going to be mad at me if I don't get it done in time. Just sit down and relax. This is a really bad example, but as I tell my fiance, if I get really stressed and I take a crap, I feel so much better afterwards. It's just the most relaxing thing in the world.
There it is. There's our answer. Go take a crap.
You're just letting loose. You're literally just letting loose. And I think, as JD mentioned, a lot of people forget about that. When writing is your job, when editing is your job, when you want to make that your passion and your living, you lose sight of the joy that you had when you originally started it, which is why, like, I want to write for a living. I would love to get to that point where I could write for a living, but I also have the fear in my head that it's going to start stressing me out, which I've gotten rid of at that point, because when you start off, if you have that fear in your head, you're not going to finish things off out of that fear. I know a lot of people who have passions that they want to do, but they don't do it because they're afraid that once they start doing it, it's no longer going to be fun to them.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to remember, you started it because you had this passion for it. If you start feeling like you're losing that passion, don't stop doing it, but take a second. Like, just breathe. You can't fight the world by yourself. Your characters can, but you can't. Okay, that's not how it works. You're not Superman. So just take a second, breathe, get your head back on straight, whatever way that is. You know, some people, everyone is different. Not every person is going to be able to listen to music and then get back into the rhythm. Not every person is going to be able to go on a walk and have everything feel better. Not every person is going to take a dump and feel great. But
I can ride a storm now.
You'll have your way. You just got to find that thing that de-stresses you, no matter how weird it is.
This is a good one.
Okay. Before that, in terms of the formula, it's also how you go about approaching a story. Challenge yourself creatively. Don't only have one thing. Because some people only have one method. I try to mix it up with every project that I do, just because that's part of what drives me and what I find fascinating in writing. People who follow a structured process in how they develop a story or a project, and they always stick to that, that's when things can get dicey. And I've seen it with a lot of people. And oftentimes when you hit that block, have a conversation with other writers, see what they do. And odds are,
yes,
they can tell you 10 things, and suddenly one or two of those things, you go like, wait a minute, I should try that.
Yeah.
And in terms of how to approach with self-made deadlines goals, don't give yourself slack. Seriously. Because if you give yourself slack one time, you're always going to give yourself slack. And I've cocked around with so many projects. Treat it like a job, treat it with respect, be brutal with deadlines, and be brutal with editing as well before you send it for that first edit to your editor. Editing. But yeah, and also if shit happens, because life is life. And life will not play by the rules and will not follow the script. If life happens, then you can give yourself slack. If you were cocking around, if you were doing other stuff and whatnot, whip yourself, lace up your boots, do the thing. You want to be a writer? You really want to be a writer? Stop, watching TikTok for 2.5 hours. Stop watching YouTube cat videos for 2.5 hours. If it's part of your process to decompress so that you can keep doing the thing, that's fine. But if you're procrastinating to the point where you go like, wow, I'm becoming the cliche, then just, you have it. That's down to you. And a lot of people, they get called out on it and they act out. And it's like, what do you want me to say? You know how many people I know, man, I have this great idea with that flow. And I've been offered to, do you want to ghostwrite it? And I go like, do you want me to ghost you? Because if you ever mention that to me again, I'm going to ghost you. I respect ghostwriters, but that's not my jam. And that's definitely not what I do. I'll do whatever I can to help someone get words on a paper. We'll fucking get it. Sorry. We'll freaking get it done.
You can say it. We don't have any restrictions on this.
Yeah, we'll fudge and get it done. But I will not write something so that you can say it's yours.
And I think JD makes some excellent points, but there's, I think, one thing that he missed. whenever I make a self-made deadline, I make a realistic one. Don't give yourself a ridiculously stupid fucking deadline, because it happens. I've done it before. My friends do it all the time. They're like, I'm going to get this done in a month. And I just look at them and I go, BS. BS, you're not going to get this done in a month. And they're like, because, next question I ask them is, how many pages? It's going to be like 200 to 300 pages. No, you're not. No way you're going to do that.
That's for me.
And
prolific writer, you can't do that.
And I hold myself to a high standard. I put myself on a very high standard, which is why I speak the way I speak in public, which is why I try to be as professional as possible anytime. But do not, by any means, give yourself a ridiculous deadline or anything of that sort. Because the second you do that, you're gonna miss that deadline. You're gonna make up another ridiculous deadline. You're gonna miss that deadline. You're gonna keep missing and missing.
You can't set yourself up to fail.
Right.
But you can set yourself up to succeed.
Yes.
And you can use goals actually to your benefit. When I work with a lot of clients and we talk about how to get the thing done, when I talk about writing, I usually say, give yourself your daily or weekly goal of a word count, something that you can achieve and that you're going to hold yourself to it. Because when you, let's say 500 words a day, it's about half an hour's worth of work.
Yep.
And you can set aside that half an hour. You can get that 500 words a day. You get that little dopamine burst, that little good feeling. Hey, I did it. The more you get that little dopamine burst of I did it, it builds the routine, it reinforces the routine, and it gets you on the path towards succeeding. But it's got to be a very achievable goal, and it's got to be one that you can do with regularity in order for that to work.
Right.
And
right. I mean, my goals are set. I set them by my editor timeline. I actually book editor slots ahead.
That's smart, because you can't get out of those goals.
Yep.
Because it's somebody else's livelihood, and I have high respect for that. I think I have moved things twice in my writing career. Once was this year when I was moving, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to finish this. And I talked to my editor. I said, can we just drop this one and I'll pick up in September because I'm moving, all of this other things were happening. And I'm like, I can't do it. This is the first time I've said I can't do it in that time frame. I've moved a couple before, but not more than a week or two. So
look at the Amazon deadlines. If you set a pre-order, you cannot back out of that without consequences.
Right. So yeah, I've done the Amazon deadlines too. So I have a hard stop.
Yeah, and those help you because you can't get out of them. When you set your own personal goals,
yes, everyone
finds excuses to get out of a personal goal at some point or another. But when you've got a goal that is going to cost you money,
right,
then we're serious now. You cannot do that. And that's when you'll see the serial procrastinators doing all-nighters in order to finish that deadline by the right time because they know they cannot screw this up.
Right. Exactly.
And going to JD's point, I think Margaret pointed out some point in the chat, him speaking about formulating one page, and I had mentioned formulating the whole story. That also comes into play in deadlines and everything, I think. When I'm formulating a page, I don't formulate a page. I write. I just write it off of what I'm thinking. And I follow the outline I made for the whole story. I mean, I made an outline before I started writing because that's the outline for the pages. There's no specific way I'm writing a page. I'm not going to do any conversation in this page or anything of that sort. I just write, which is how you're going to hit your deadlines. If you overthink every step of the way, whether it be one page, one sentence, one paragraph, 2 pages, one word, if you overthink that process or if you try to formulate it, it's going to come out not the way you intended. Sometimes you just gotta do the outline before you write the book, and then you just gotta write. I mean, it sucks to say that, because a lot of the time you want to finesse every single word, you want to finesse every sentence, every page. You want to make sure that when you give it to your editor, it's the best product. But it's your first draft, it's your first deadline. Just write, just go with it. Once you start writing, you're going to hit those pages quickly, and eventually you're going to look down and go, oh crap, I'm at the limit that I wanted to be at, or I'm past it. And then you can go, all right, well, my deadline's not for another day or two. Let me read through this. And that's when you can go back and you can be nitpicky and you can start to formulate how you want it. But if you do the formulating as you're writing, you are going to shoot yourself right in the foot. And it's going to suck. And I understand I'm 21, but I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to writing.
All the pantsers out here going, no, we're not doing outlines first. Don't you tell me that.
Yeah, that's where we differ.
Yeah,
I have
that's fine.
pantser.
There's no right or wrong way. Pantsers are good, plotters are good. It's how you approach. That's your process.
Yes. I have pantser projects and I have plotter projects and I have planter projects. Again, and anything to keep things different. You tap into different things. How the hell some people can pants an entire novel? Beyond me. I can do that with a short story and get away with it, and do it in a way that you go like, oh, that was cool. But with but with a series or with a novel, hell no, I cannot. Maybe eventually I'll give it a shot. Right now, I have 26 projects that I have to finish. Those are going to get plotted out.
The chat room is flooded right now with pantsers versus plotters.
Yes.
You have started the great debate, sir.
Oh, it happens. I could never I could always do one outline, but it gets into my head if I start nitpicking everything, because I'm that guy that when I start nitpicking, it's bad. I'm like, why did I use that word? No. I don't like that word either. You know what? Google synonyms. These are all stupid. I'm just going to make up a word, and I'm going to say it's a new language in the book. That sounds good. Hippajuba. That sounds like it's a nice one.
Here's the thing, and I tell this to all of my clients. Your first draft is supposed to suck. Allow your first draft to suck, because no one's going to read that but you. Get it on the page and then do all the other nitpicky stuff. You can't edit anything that's not on the page. Mm-hmm. So
I told them that today too.
Do the words on the page, get them out there, but get it done first, then go back and do the picky shit.
Yeah, I've mentioned the SAT approach. If you don't know the answer in terms of what you're writing, get something on the page so that you can go back to that. But don't fixate on that, because that's the first or one of the first things that you can do to get yourself in a block. Keep going. It sucks. Put it in highlight, put it in red, put it in Comic Sans, do whatever you have to do to know that it sucks. But don't get hung up on that, because if you get hung up on that, nothing else is going to get done.
And I think everyone's got there's a line between formulating as a good thing and formulating as a bad thing. The reason I do outlines every now and again is because I don't know where I'm gonna go that makes sense, and my brain is literally a spider web of random thoughts for a novel. One thought is, oh, these characters are gonna have fun here. The other thought is I wonder if I blew up that building, what would happen? And then the other thought in the back of my head is, this is how I want this to end. So I personally need to make an outline beforehand to try and make that spider web more of a line so that I know point A, point B, point Z. But once that little quick outline, which again, I have 300 to 400 pages of just single sentences of first page.
He calls 300 to 400 pages small.
It is. It's just a bunch of sentences. Katie, one of the sentences is dies. It follows literally it follows these character fight, dies, and then it just continues going one sentences. But then when I write the novel and I look at the outline, I'm like, wow, this is nothing like the outline. And that's when I go back and I actually
Somebody else said.
look at it.
See, in comparison, I write to-do lists, but it's literally like a single sheet of paper, milk, eggs, cheese, kill the dragon, go home. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
But
you and I did that for the Running from the Devil series. And I had to get used to some of your writing ways where you jumped ahead and filled in and things like that. And I'm like, that, because I write up until then, I wrote linear, beginning to end, or I wrote the end and then I started at the beginning and got there. So this piecemeal that Katie did was interesting. And I now find if I'm stuck somewhere, I'll write the next scene and then I'll do the bridge stuff.
That's how I got started with that style.
Yeah, it helps, move the story along and the flow. So
it hopscotches over the writer's block. So run into a wall after I wrote this chapter. Crap, I don't know what's going on. Look at the to-do list. Oh, I want to go get this. Okay, I'll write the scene where they do this. And eventually you bridge the gap.
Yep. And I think Margaret put it carefully, like perfectly there. Character looks at author's outline. Character, hold my beer. Like that's what happens half the time. Yes. You have your to-do list or your outline where they do it differently, or they're all a very similar way of doing things. It's just quick little points of this is what I kind of want to follow, and this is what I'm going to kind of do. And again, when you're writing, you might just think, you know what, I don't like that idea. Let's switch it up a little bit. And your character will do something completely out of the blue. In one of my short stories.
You don't always have to follow your outlines. What you need to do is follow where the story is going. And if the outline doesn't make sense, change the outline.
And that's part of finding the joy again, too, is if you're feeling stuck in the outline you wrote, don't be a slave to the outline.
Right.
Go off on another adventure within your story, and whether you use it or not doesn't matter. You're going on this adventure, you're exploring, and that can create that bit of joy you need to get back on track.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the best things are just absolutely crazy mudslides of thoughts thrown on a page and then polished. Have you guys seen Inception? That movie is a shit show, a literal shit show. If you follow that perfectly, good for you. But like when I watch that, it's amazing, but it's like crazy. And a lot of the time, that is some author's mindset. It's just crazy jumbleness that's thrown out there and then polished. And then once it's polished, everyone's like, oh crap, that's cool.
All right, guys, we are actually 12 minutes over. We got into a pretty good debate here. You guys have been wonderful guests. Thank you so much for making this a super fun episode. I expected it, but I'm so glad it actually happened. And before we go, we do have to pay homage to our second sponsor, who is in the chat, as always, one of our biggest supporters. We love you, Mistress Rebekah Jonesy. And yes, you will be entertained by her stories. And if you can, on Wednesdays, check out her live readings because she is a fabulous reader. I love listening to her read and give life to those characters.
And she's also doing hangouts, just waffling off.
Which is nice, too. It's nice to be able to just hang out and chit-chat and de-stress a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Before we go, does anybody have anything they want to share? Any upcoming notes? Any upcoming books? Anything?
When I have official news, I will make it official. Until then, I'm working on stuff.
Yep, in June, Dragon Tempest.
All right, so we expect a new release in June. For those of you out there who may need a little help with your writing, I am doing the Storycraft seminar series all month long. On Thursdays, we're doing the next part of the series. We already did plot structure. We are now on finish that first draft. So this Thursday, April 22nd, 6 p.m. Pacific time is when this will be live. There will be a presentation, live Q&A. Bring your questions, bring your notebook. It is virtual. It is done through Zoom. So you do need to register ahead of time to get your spot. And I think that's it for this week. We'll be back again next week with more fun conversation as always and more authors to introduce you to. Thanks everyone for watching. And remember to smash that like button.
Yes.